My intention. This presentation is building on my previous presentation, Law by Consent, and is an account of my own path to awakening, which I provide here for the benefit of others. Whilst everyone's journey is a unique and individual experience, by observing the experiences of others, it can help to bridge from a sleepy, earthly, logical perception to a higher, awakened, spiritual perspective. Rather than accepting the spoon-fed systems perspective, we can share our individual viewpoint to give us a broader picture of the collective. By creating a daisy chain of newly awakening conscious people, we assist each other in fueling the upward spiral to a better, fairer world for all. This presentation joins together many dots in my personal experience to create a tangible picture which might serve as a catalyst for you to make the leap into higher consciousness yourself and help bring freedom from bondage to all people whom choose it. I do not claim to have all the answers, nor do I claim to be right. I only hold one unique perspective, and so do you. I have researched largely on the internet and with books across many subjects including law, symbolism, spirituality and holistic healing for perhaps 5 to 6 years in the initial stages of my awakening, which has led me to personally experience a greater reality around us. This is something I could never have foreseen prior to taking those steps forward and being interested and willing enough to step outside of my then limited beliefs about who I was. After feeling for many years that things within society were just not seeming right, I chose to follow my own nose, and I began to explore other avenues. A higher plane of consciousness has since revealed itself to me, and so my individual perspective has expanded beyond recognition. This presentation contains mind-expanding concepts, and much of the reference I have used along the way are included within this work to assist in your own research and making your own path. I consider this work as an entry level of focus, a launching pad of a number of dots joined for your ease in coming to your own self-realization. And it ought to be said that it is as much in your own experiences as in your research where you will find yourself, the true self. Life itself is the lesson and the teacher if you are keen enough to be observing it. This quest is as much intuitive as it is inquisitive, but the higher mind is certainly beyond the reach of the purely rational or logic mind. When we keenly observe, paying attention to our own intuition, our inner tutor, or the natural guidance system which we all have to allow us to navigate this voyage of discovery with, we can rise above the sea of noise and correctly discern the right path for ourselves, instead of merely accepting the authoritarian state, the artificial voice, the voice which only seeks to serve itself and its own cause. Journey well. Imagine you are in your cot at the end of your mother's hospital bed on the day of your actual birth. A man in a raincoat wearing a trilby hat mysteriously appeared from nowhere. He was a somewhat dubious character and placed a gift into your cot right beside you. He leaned over and whispered to you briskly, so as not to wake your exhausted mother.
"Here, kid, here's the meaning of life all wrapped up in a brown paper parcel, just for you."
Good luck with that one.
"Oh, and happy birthday, kid. Enjoy your life."
He smiled wryly and then slipped silently into the hospital corridor and then disappeared. On waking, your mother eventually noticed the parcel next to you and, somewhat confused by it, she opened it. Inside was a jigsaw puzzle, but it was rather baffling to her since the 1,000 pieces were all pure white. Seeing no use for the jigsaw and with her not really knowing where it came from, the jigsaw puzzle was left and was eventually discarded in the skip by a nurse who remade the bed after your mother took you home to begin your new life on planet Earth. Now ask yourself this: does it feel as if the meaning of your life was lost in a skip somewhere many years ago? So did mine, and here's why. Imagine a world where we each give our unique qualities for the benefit of each other. We give them freely and joyfully because we are doing what we love to do and it feels effortless and enjoyable to do that. Now, Imagine that because we are all of a higher loving consciousness, those people whom receive our services, that energy investment for the greater good, they intuitively understand that they have freely received a benefit of the energies of the other person, and so they, in turn, go on to give the best of their own energy to either exchange with that same person or to pass on that goodwill to another without debt, restraint, or obligation. We each intuitively know that this natural balance of exchanging our energy freely in that world is a better place or state of being, but we still choose to act from a perception of lack, of taking more for less, of getting rather than giving something, or by giving but not being able to receive freely. This is why most of us experience a sense of lack in our lives. We have mostly lived in a way that serves ourselves, not each other. We each indirectly serve the middleman, the state, which uses devices such as money, debt, and economics to manipulate the direction of your energies and thereby perpetuates the perception of lack, keeping us locked into our lower consciousness behavior patterns. Power and control has been the name of the game and the prime objective of what has inevitably become the controlling forces on the planet today, the authoritarian state. These individuals and collectives are not necessarily the governments, but more covert controllers are well aware of the reality behind the nature of the human, its behavior, and the truth about how our minds and anatomy works on a much deeper energetic level than we are taught. We are kept in lower conscious behaviors to fuel the negative agenda which harvests your energy for its own sustenance. This higher knowledge has given an advantage in the quest for power and control, and our ignorance has served that cause very well. But this is our time of awakening, and the greatest gift you have is that of free will. No matter what any man-made, artificial, self-serving system tries to dictate, ultimately you are born to this earth as an equal with the free will to act as you wish, to self-determine the course of your life, and no one else can take that from you without impacting their own karmic imprint, except where you willingly or tacitly consent to it. The systems which have developed over hundreds of years have either been created by or have inevitably fallen and become subject to these controlling forces, either by covert usurpation of those systems or by directing society towards methods and practices which supports its ideology and agenda for domination. We have been used. We have allowed ourselves to be manipulated into allowing the misdirection of our natural evolution, preventing our growth towards our natural state of being, our rightful path of sovereignty, and the fruition of humanity into its full expression of higher consciousness. Advanced knowledge, which has been carefully withheld from mainstream attention, has given an advantage in the quest for power and control, and our ignorance has served that cause very well. However, at a higher perspective and consciousness, it may be fair to say that we have drawn this experience to ourselves collectively to assist us in awakening our conscious selves further. The problems we face are the struggles we must overcome and rise above to be rightfully and naturally of higher conscious effect. For example, historically such tools of manipulation have been identified as religion used by the power structures of their time, the churches and their religious leaders, or monarchy, etc. It is a very subtle dynamic between the controller and the controlled, and whilst there are tools which are the methods of control, the actual control is of the psychology, the consciousness and the energy of beings involved. We may cite religion or politics as being the tool of control, but in terms of consciousness, it is really the fear of what that religion or ideology suggests, if not followed correctly, which manipulates that conscious individual to behave in a particular way. What appears to be one being controlling another is also one being allowing the other power over themselves. The effects of control systems and its tools have been reverberating throughout history. The same patterns and dynamics of consciousness are still playing out, but in different physical forms. Where religion was once the higher knowledge used to manipulate, we have also seen the law system, politics, and even scientific higher knowledge become the tools with which we are manipulated by accepting on face value its higher knowing, its authority, so-called. The scope of this presentation is a tricky job. I want to give you the benefit of being able to view from a higher perspective to expand your perception of reality, expanding your consciousness. This means that the presentation will in effect transition through dimensional perspectives for you to be able to make the connections between the lower perspectives and the higher perspectives, and in effect take a quantum leap to higher consciousness. Please note, I do not align myself with any doctrine, dogma, religion, philosophy, or scientific teachings. I am an individual, an observer, an experiencer, and a witness. As a receiver for all information and experience, I take what is present in my reality as a source for me to weigh up that reality, ideally without bias or preference, in order that I can comprehend it and in some way benefit the expansion of my consciousness perspective to best effect. In order to solve our problems, we must step outside of ourselves for a greater perspective. As Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. There is an axiom of the Kabbalion which states, as above, so below. The thing which seems to me to be a most crucial key to our success as a species and as individuals is alluded to in this axiom. It is apparent from my observations that we are not only reflections of each other upon the earth plane, but also reflect the higher and lower dimensions of existence too. It is coming into this awareness of there being more beyond our own individuality, but most importantly, that what is beyond is not only intimately connected to us, but that it connects all of us. It is us, and we are it. More about this later. Much of my greater awareness of dimensional structure and the truth of the human condition has come to me via the teachings of the Guardian Alliance through Speaker 1, Ashiana Dean. She and her team are an earth-based representative and voice piece for the Guardian Alliance to impart a greater perspective to humanity during these profound times of transition to higher awareness. Her materials, which are available on the internet, such as books, presentations, and meditations, tell a profound story which is utterly mind-blowing. They say the truth is stranger than fiction, and so it is.